Green Bay Packers had a
Correct.
very successful season last year. They finished
Pack go.
third in the NFC North. They finished top 10 in offensive points, offensive yards, defensive points, and defensive yards. I think this season is going to be defined by their passing game. Jordan Love comes back for his third season as a starter, and in his second year, he regressed, throwing for less yards, less touchdowns, and more interceptions than he did in his first year as a starter. He did improve in the second half of that season, throwing 23 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions from Week 11 onto their elimination in the wild card round because every NFC North team lost in their first game of the playoffs. But the biggest thing about the Green Bay Packers is I hate their wide receiver room. They are. It was all right last year. It was kind of I feel like they're trying to play Moneyball, where they have a lot of guys and no superstar. And then this year, they spent their first round pick on, in my opinion, a guy who is not a superstar and is going to just do the exact same thing that their other 5 guys they already had in the room are going to do. And that really bothers me. And then they spent a third round pick on another wide receiver that I don't think is going to be a superstar. So they just continue to invest a lot of resources into guys I don't expect to return on that investment. They've got Dontavian Wicks, who played 19 games last year with 605 yards on 14.8 yards per reception. They've got Jaden Reed, who played 18 games, 8 touchdowns, 12.2 yards per reception. Romeo Doubs, 19 games. They had nobody go over 1,000 yards last year. They've got Christian Watson, who did experience some pretty severe hamstring issues all of last season. Played 11 games, had just over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. And then they spent a first-round pick and a third-round pick on Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. I am worried about Jordan Love's regression from year 3 to year 4, year 1 as a starter to year 2. And then that wide receiver room where I think that the best comparison I can give is it's kind of like Mississippi State baseball is at times where we have 6 outfielders who I wish that we could play all 6 of them at once, but you can only play 3 guys. I would love if you look at every wide receiver room in the NFL, the Green Bay Packers probably have the best 6 wide receivers in the NFL. But that does not do you a lot because you can only put 3, maybe 4 of them on the field at once. So I really just don't know. I don't really like that approach of being like, congratulations, you have no superstar, and the six average guys. It does not appeal to me. I don't think it's going to be successful.
Sure.
They are my pick for 6. If I had to pick a team to get 6 wins, it would be the Packers. I think I picked them winning more than that, but if I had to pick someone to get 6 wins, it would be the Packers. Matt LaFleur is a very good coach. Won 2 games last year with an injured Jordan Love, starting Malik Willis, right, at quarterback. And realistically, he kind of changed the game plan around Malik Willis, which I have a lot of respect for his ability to do that. The Green Bay Packers looked very different for the 2 weeks when Malik Willis was quarterback. And Malik Willis looked like a good quarterback. His stats were good. But I think that was just a very good game plan by Matt LaFleur, which gives me a lot of respect for him as a head coach, which maybe you should trust him as a result and think that the game plan and the way he's building that team is going to work. I don't have that much respect for him. But yeah, we shall see. That's kind of I do not trust the Green Bay offense in its current iteration.
Yeah, I'll hop in real quick because I actually have thoughts. In terms of them getting 6 wins, Matt LaFleur kind of seems like the guy that is, like, if he's the head coach, they're going to find a way to win games.
Mike Tomlin kind of guy.
Yeah, I wasn't going to give him quite that respect yet because Mike Tomlin's done it for a long time. Yeah. And also, I disagree about the wide receiver room because even if you go back to our draft night coverage, we disagree fundamentally about Matthew Golden. I'm a lot higher on him than y'all are.
But then I think JP, you're pretty high on him, right? I think
okay.
it's just me.
I'm
the outlier.
Apologies, JP. I'm very high on Matthew Golden. And so with him leading the group, it kind of puts the receiver room in new light to me. I actually end up really liking it, whereas last year I would have completely agreed. I would have been like, it's a bunch of kind of gadget, gimmicky guys, a bunch of pretty solid receivers, but no alpha dog. And I really think Matthew Golden can be that. And so then that gets me excited to be like, oh, Dontavian Wicks is your wide receiver 2, and Jaden Reed can kind of fill in and make plays when needed, and same for Dubs. Also, don't disrespect Dontavian Wicks, UVA legend. So got to shout out my Wahoos. But yeah, I really like their wide receiver room. It's not like I'm saying it's like elite or anything, because also you got to realize Matthew Golden is coming in as a rookie.
Right.
But I really like that pick from them, and I think it's going to help them out a lot offensively. So
Yeah, tons of things to touch on from what y'all said, and then I can get into my stuff. But I think, for one, I am also high on Matthew Golden. Our best performing TikTok is a Matthew Golden TikTok.
True.
So we should all be high on Matthew Golden, I'd say.
I should make a TikTok dogging on him and then hope that he just outperforms that.
That would be interesting. Good luck with that, though. I had him potentially going as high as 9 to the Panthers in the draft. I was that high on him. Now, I do want to say, I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 yet, and I don't expect him to be that for the Packers in his rookie season. But what I do love is the speed is going to be a big thing there, his big play threat. And then he was really, really good at catching the tough ones. Like, his spectacular catch rating in Madden would be really high. It won't be this season because he's a rookie, but it will be really high. I promise you. He's going to make some big catches for the Packers. I have a feeling for that. For the Packers, this has been the story for a couple years now. They haven't had a 800-yard-plus receiver since Devontae Adams left, besides last season with Jaden Reed, which Sanders is going to pull up those numbers. We have a graphic for that as well. But yeah, they've been wide receiver by committee. They were last year, and they were the year prior as well since Devontae Adams left. But what I do think we're kind of missing here with the Packers is just go back and look at the numbers and go back and just look a little bit closer, and I think you'll see this is a really good team here. And this is the team that I have winning the NFC North. I have them going 12-5, and it's large in part because I thought they were really good last year. They just got unlucky. Packers were a top 5 offense and a top 6 defense in yards per game last year on both sides of the ball. They were 11-6 in their division. Any guesses what their record was?
in their division.
Their record in the division, I'm gonna say 1-5. The Packers.
You play.
I'm gonna say 1-5.
4-2.
1-5.
Okay.
They were 1-5. They
I couldn't
lost.
tell which way you were going with
They
it.
lost 6 games last year. They were 1-5. Their only other loss, opening week against Saquon Barkley in Brazil to the Super Bowl champions. They were 11-1 in games where they did not, or 10-1 in games where they did not play their division last year. And in those games that they lost in the division, they lost them by a total of 19 points. That's 5 games, 19 points. 4 of them were by 3 points or less. One of them was by 1, 2 were by 2, and 1 was by 3. So with their only other loss being to the Super Bowl champs, I felt like this was actually a team that was like a step away from being really good. And the pushback might be, oh, well, they were winning one-score games on the other way. No, they weren't. They blew out the Saints. They blew out the 49ers. They were really, really good against the other teams as well, and including the AFC. A big thing for them is going to be the schedule. Again, we've gotten into this with the Detroit Lions and even the Chicago Bears. If you have that one, they have a very, very difficult – the NFC North schedule.
Oh, yeah, the strength schedule.
Yes, so all 4 of these teams are in the, top 6?
It's top 7.
Top 7 in terms of difficult schedules. The NFC East is the other division that's up there as well with them. They play some really, really good teams, and part of that is because they play themselves, but the Packers are going to have another difficult schedule, but I think it's actually a schedule that's pretty easy to manage. Opening week, getting it at home and facing Detroit, I think is going to be helpful for them, and I think they're going to get that done. Jaden Daniels comes to town the next week on Thursday Night Football, and I think that's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be hopefully one of the better Thursday Night Football games we've ever seen with Jaden Daniels and Jordan Love.
Should be a ton of fun.
But going forward from that, their schedule is very workable through those first 11 weeks. They'll play Cleveland, at Dallas. They'll host Cincinnati. They'll go to Arizona. They'll go to Pittsburgh in an Aaron Rodgers potential revenge game. They'll host Carolina. They get to host Philly instead of going back to Philly, where they lost in the wild card round last season. They go to the New York Giants. I think that's a big thing there, just in the NFC East. getting to go to Dallas and go to the New York Giants instead of going to Washington or Philly, I think that's pretty big. Getting the best teams in that division last season at home and the worst teams on the road helps them a ton from a schedule perspective. They'll also get to host Baltimore. The other teams have to go to Baltimore. I think that's going to be key. Week 17, I'm going to go and book that as one of my, this is going to be one of my favorite games of the season. And unfortunately, it's not going to be in prime time. It could be flexed, but Baltimore comes to Green Bay and Lambeau Field week 17. That's going to be awesome. I hope that's a snow game. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry against Josh Jacobs and the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. That's going to be a really fun game to watch. They'll get to play at Detroit on Thanksgiving, which is a game that they won 2 years ago on Thanksgiving. So I think it's a very, very workable schedule for how difficult it is for the Green Bay Packers, and that's why I have them playing so well. And I think that's going to be the key, though, is it's going to be their division. They were 1-5 last year. All of them basically one-score games. If they're just 3-3 in the division, they're in theory 13-3 last season. So 13-4, I should say. So I think that's going to be an interesting question for them. If they can handle the division, which I think they will. I think they're the best team in the division right now, and that's why I had them winning it.
Sure.
They're going to be a good team. Their only problem is I think schedule is going to hold them back from getting up to the first seed potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're all pretty high on Green Bay. We all have them hitting double-digit wins, so just kind of varying degrees. Sanders, you have them going 11-6. I have them technically lowest at 10-7. But I like the point, kind of how the schedule works out. Do we want to talk about kind of the Jair Alexander stuff? Is he's out the door?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jair's out the door. Goes to the Ravens. They also lost cornerback Eric Stokes,
Which is another, that week 17 matchup you get to see, or week 17, right?
Yeah, Jair Alexander.
You get the Jair return to Green Bay.
Returns to Lambeau. Yes, that's going to be really interesting. I thought Nate Hobbs from the Raiders, which not a lot of people know that name. I know that name because I've played a ton of Madden. And I don't just think he's good because of Madden, but I think that's part of it.
Sure.
I will say. He's an 80-plus overall in Madden. So he's really good, obviously. But no, I think he replaces that a little bit there. Xavier McKinney was absolutely outstanding for them, but the big thing for the Packers was they were prolific at getting to the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Edgerrin Cooper had a really good season out of A&M.
I was going to shout him out. Yeah.
Rashawn Gary was really good as well. So the Jair Alexander loss and the Eric Stokes loss are big, but I don't think it plays as much for the Packers, who were a top 6 defense last year.
Right, they were a top 6 defense, and Alexander has been hurt for so much of the past 2 to 3 seasons that they realistically have been playing without him for a lot of the games. So he definitely will be missed. He's a talented guy, but they've done it without him before, so I see no reason why they can't do it without him.
Completely agree.
Forward.
Your other big question for Green Bay, and we haven't mentioned this yet, is going to be offensive line. Their PFF grades were not good last year, which I know Sanders is big on PFF.
Yeah, his ears just perked up under the headset.
They got 4 guys below a 68 rating on their offensive line. Bulldog legend Elton Jenkins, who actually, when he rang the big cowbell, he was the one that made it topple over at one of the football games last year. He's moving to center this year. He hasn't played center since 2020. He's also in a contract dispute with the Packers, so there's some turmoil there. But this is not the offensive line that Packer fans have been used to back in the Rodgers years with David Bakhtiari and Brian Bulaga.
Dylan Day, another Mississippi State legend.
Mm-hmm. Zach Tom is really the only consistent piece for them. And you think back to the Eagles' playoff game last year, that's where it happened. Like, Jordan Love got eaten alive. And they, are going to have some questions there. So that's going to be key for them going forward next season is how does the offensive line play? And can they get the same success from Josh Jacobs? Because if they can run the ball, then I think it's not as big of an issue. But they were not able to run the ball against the Eagles in the playoff game. And they got behind early, and they were forced to pass, and a pass rush like the Eagles ate them alive. That is my biggest fear for the Packers and how I think they'll lose games this year. If they get behind early and they have to pass, this offensive line is not good enough to protect Jordan Love. And a guy who already sprained his MCL last year, like, we don't want to He also hurt his elbow as well and nearly missed some time. You don't want to knock this guy up who's on a big time contract, and he's the face of your franchise. So that's the worry for Green Bay for me.
Agreed.
After picking them to win the division, is offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Anything else on the Packers before we round out the division?
I've got nothing else, Sanders.
No, like I said, they're my pick if I had to pick a team. Did you speak about Jordan Love? Do you have thoughts there?
Sure, I can.
I've got him as QB3 ahead of JJ McCarthy, only because JJ McCarthy has not played. JJ McCarthy will basically be a rookie this season. I am a little lower on Jordan Love than I was going into last season coming out of his first year starting. I was high on him after his first year starting, had him in fantasy, but now I'm a little bit more skeptical.
So you would say you are not bullish on Jordan Love?
I am not
Okay.
bullish on Jordan Love.
Well, I am bullish on Jordan Love. I think he's the best quarterback in the division from a talent perspective. Like we talked about earlier, I have questions with Jared Goff, and I'm going to have even bigger questions now with Ben Johnson gone. I think Caleb, with the way he played last season in one-score games, which was not good, there's some question marks there, which is why I wouldn't put him up. I agree. J.J. McCarthy is the worst quarterback in the division solely because he has not played an NFL snap yet. So for me, it's Jordan Love. He's got the playoff win to really show for it. So he at least meets that criteria for me, which is big in terms of who's the best quarterback in the division. While Jared Goff has more, I think Jordan Love is a guy who has made this offense that much better. Like this cast of receivers, if you put it with, I don't, not to throw anyone under
Brock
the bus.
Purdy?
Not Brock Purdy, but Kyle Allen or Davis Mills. Like this is not actually really a group of receivers that you really even know their names because they're, like you said, none of them are superstars. None of them are really even stars yet. And yet with Jordan Love, you know all of these names because they've made big plays because Jordan Love has made the big throws to get it to these guys. Jaden Reed has become, a big player because of Jordan Love in my eyes. And so for me, Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the division, and I expect him to play well again this year because he's able to take these pieces and make them ascend into names that you know. You know these names. You know Romeo Doubs. You know about Jaden Reed. You know about Dontavian Wicks. You know about Christian Watson. And I think you're going to know about Matthew Golden as well this year. So Sanders pulling up PFF grade to see if there's a way to tear it apart. I think a big question for it last year, and you touched on it, the first thing you said was you felt like there was a regression. And I thought, for me, the regression was solely because sprained MCL the first week of the season, and then he was dealing with the elbow injury to end the season. And for me, that was the large part of it. I don't think Jordan Love was really ever healthy throughout the entirety of last year.
Yeah, it'll come down to me. Do we get first half of the season Jordan Love or second half of the season Jordan Love? He in weeks 1 through 11, he had 14 touchdowns to 5, 6, 10, 11 interceptions. That is not a great ratio for a fourth-year QB and a second-year starter. I'm not even looking at the PFF grades because we're not going to talk about that because y'all dog on me for that stuff. Those are the stats. 14 to 11 is not a great ratio. That's just me. I could be wrong in the counting. He threw a lot of interceptions and then cleaned that up for the second half of the season. 12 through 18, he threw 0. So it's really going to come down to, and maybe that is in part due to injury. He missed a couple. He missed weeks 2 and 3 due to injury. So it could come down. It might have been that he was dealing with. But if we get a second half of the season kind of Jordan Love next year, then they're my pick to win the NFC North. If we get the first half of the season, they're my pick to get 6 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that it's that regression that has me skeptical because I was so bullish on him after year 3. So, yeah, we'll see. I would love for him to prove me wrong because I might have him in a keeper fantasy league. Yeah, I actually think I do. I really would love for him to prove me wrong.
That is
fair enough.
That is the key factor in all of these conversations, anyways. Fantasy football.
It really is.
I hate this guy
We're
'cause
gonna
he-
live stream our draft, right? It's gonna be an episode.
Absolutely.
He's gonna be
Let's go.
bad because he screwed me over. in
We'll
fantasy
have
last
our own
year.
fantasy segment where we break down.
Oh, we're gonna be doing updates, 5-minute
Exactly.
updates every week, like how we
Exactly.
our records. Because we're
Start.
I'm not
Roshan
doing- I'm
Johnson
not
this
starting
week.
to- I'm not doing this. Start.
that would actually be a fun segment.
You got that one. Jack.
Sit.
I will-
Sit.
You should
Sit
do that
Justin
segment.
Jefferson
That would
this
be a
week,
really
man.
fun
Trust me.
segment.
Yeah, the matchup just is not there.
Yeah,
Jordan
the
Addison
matchup.
though, they're gonna be triple teaming Justin Jefferson, so you got to start Jordan Addison.
I think that would be hilarious.
Okay, I'm down for that. We ready to move on to the last team, the Minnesota Vikings?
Yes,
Let's do it.
that.